Hi, I'm Mia Friedman. Welcome to No Filter. Tina Arena's name isn't actually Tina. It's Filipina, or Pina for short. Pina Arena. But back in the late 70s, her first boss, Johnny Young, host of Young Talent Time, didn't think Aussie ears would welcome the sound of such an unusual, let's be honest, ethnic name. So he broached with her first-generation immigrant parents the idea of changing Pina's name to Tina. They suggested he ask their 9-year-old daughter how she felt about it. She was cool, and Tina she became. It wouldn't be the last time someone tried to change her. I watched Young Talent Time in the 70s and 80s, and Tina was my favourite. If you're too young to remember it, it was a little bit like The Voice Kids. So it was like a weekly talent show for kids under 16. But there was also like a regular group of kids who would perform every week. They would perform song and dance numbers as well. And it had this rotating cast of people, and Tina Arena was probably the most famous. Danny Minogue was another Young Talent Time cast member, and the two of them are really, really close friends to this day. Now, the fact that Tina was my favourite does not make me even remotely special, because everyone loved Tina. And 40 years after she first appeared on TV, Tina is back in Australia, having crammed in a hell of a lot of living. She married her first manager and divorced him a couple of years later when she was still in her early 20s, a situation which proved devastating on a lot of levels and which she still has really strong feelings about. She went from child star to young woman, and all of the sort of awkwardness that can involve very much in the public eye. And then she left Australia to escape the mantle of being Tiny Tina, and famous in a way that can really start to feel suffocating when you want to grow and change and make mistakes and try new things. After 20 years living in France, becoming a mother and an icon in a whole other language and culture, she's back in Australia for good. And she has a lot to say, all of it fascinating and glorious. Tina is very, very real. She looks real, she talks real, and no bullshit doesn't even begin to describe her attitude to life. She is a big thinker. She's gone through menopause, and she's entering a phase in her life where the music industry she loves is notorious for casting aside women. What's all that like? We had a lot to discuss. You're going to love it. Here's Tina Arena.
Thanks, honey. I'm sweating.
I was like,
hot flush.
Are you preparing to cry?
No, not at all. It's just a hot flush, Bella, that's all.
Tell me, how are they going?
Yeah, they're good.
What have I got to expect?
Oh, you're fine. You're absolutely fine.
But what's a hot flush feel like?
Well, it's a little bit of a power surge, really.
Is it?
Yeah. And I just deal with it because I don't take any medication. I won't do a HRT. I won't take any kind of medication that I just don't really know where it's going to take me.
Yeah.
So
when did you start going through menopause?
After Dancing with the Stars.
How old were you?
46.
And did you know that's what it was going to be? Were you expecting it?
No, I was expecting to be menopausal later because my mother was menopausal later. But after it happened to me, I spoke to my sister, and my sister started her menopause at 46, which I found was really unusual. I went, okay. She's now 56. And I started at the same age, which I found was really interesting. However, Mum was later.
No one talks about it.
No one at all.
No one talks about it. And
but there's a lot of things we don't talk about in this country.
Is it different in Europe?
Yes, it is.
Do people talk about menopause?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
How? In what context?
Well, they're just a little bit more open. But, women, at the end of the day, are perhaps not so motivated by things that are, how can you say? I mean, menopause is an issue that nobody really avoids, regardless of where you come from, what colour you are, what you believe in.
There's no Botox for your ovaries.
There's no Botox for your ovaries, that's for sure. Although they'll probably work on that. No, but I think the European women have a much healthier relationship with ageing, and that's one of the things that I deeply reproach to this country. I think Australians have a very unhealthy relationship with ageism. And that's why I spoke about it, because I thought none of you talk about it. And, you look at me and I'm nearly 50 in a minute, and you're all of a sudden telling me to sort of step aside. Well, don't tell me to step aside. You're not going to tell an executive who's 49 years of age and at the top of his tree to step aside, are you? Well, what makes you think you have the right to tell a woman as well? And I'm not talking feminist here, because it's got nothing to do with feminism for me. It's about humanity and the respect of the male and the female entity.
Well, why do we just discard one? It is to do with feminism, really, in a way, because why do we only discard one gender? Men become just more powerful as they age.
Well, and
women become less.
Correct. And moving forwards, it's not about that. What it is to understand intelligently that we have to move forwards and that we have to be embracive, and that a woman is beautifully interesting when she's in her fourth decade and in her fifth and in her sixth or whatever. There is always something to learn from women, like there's always something to learn from men. And, and the last thing I want to participate in is the dumbing down of anybody, because it's just not constructive. It's not constructive, and I have lots of things to say, and I'm comfortable at nearly 50 to be able to say them, because I feel I've earned it now. I've travelled, I've taken a lot of risks, I've lived a life that people will never know. And that,
what do you mean by that?
Well, there's lots of things that went on in my life, in my 20s and my 30s, that I won't talk about. And the reason why I won't talk about it is because I don't believe in regression. I don't believe in going backwards. I believe in moving forwards. And I believe people are smart enough to understand that a trajectory like myself or anybody's who's supposedly successful, doesn't come with its bumps and bruises. There's a lot of things I don't talk about, and I'm not interested, because it's not information that is firstly of anybody's business and secondly constructive in any way, shape or form.
How do you reconcile that with having been in the public eye since you were 5 years old, a little bit older than 5, and you are a national treasure?
That frightens me, that reference. A national treasure.
But you are. You're an iconic Australian in every sense. How do you carve out privacy for yourself? Is that why you moved to France and moved to Europe?
Yeah, I did. I needed anonymity, and I needed to get back to me. And I didn't, and I found myself getting lost because I was going through personal things that took me down a path that was imposed on me, and I hated that.
What path?
Well, going through separation, divorce. I had a very ugly divorce.
Yeah, you did. You married your manager.
Very, very ugly divorce. And the conversation, I don't want to talk, because I don't like giving oxygen to something that doesn't deserve it.
I understand.
And that's really important that we put that and understand that really wholeheartedly. However, I was taken down a trajectory where I was humiliated, I was bullied professionally, personally, and I was exposed to things that were deeply disturbing. And
how old were you?
I was my late 20s, and I grew up as a kid that had never hurt anybody. And all of a sudden I had all this success, and as a result of all of this success, there was like someone was saying to me, now, as a result of that success, you are going to have to eat the other side of the pie, the shit side of the pie, which is exactly what I did. And I went, Jesus, is this what it's all about? At that point I left. I went, okay, I need to get back to me. I've got a long journey ahead of me.
Okay, I'm just interjecting with a few facts. Tina was born in Melbourne in 1967 to Sicilian immigrants Joe and Franca. She grew up in Moonee Ponds in Melbourne with her parents and 2 sisters, Nancy and Sylvania. She appeared on Young Talent Time as a contestant in 1976 at age 9, and then she became part of the Young Talent Time team or squad from 1977 to 1983.
Hello Australia, and welcome to a very exciting, action-packed, fun Young Talent Time. And I'd like to introduce you to my children and give them a round of applause as you see them. First of all, Miss Tina Arena as they trip to Saturday.
She had to leave when she was 16 because that's when you had to leave the Young Talent Time family. She was the longest serving cast member of the hit show. During the time she was part of Young Talent Time, Tina Arena worked 6 days a week, 52 weeks of the year for 7 years. And after leaving the show, she signed her first record deal at just 17, but nobody wanted to work with her due to the stigma that came from being Tiny Tina Arena. So she did jingle work and she released a few singles in the 80s, but it wasn't until more than a decade after leaving the show in 1995 when she finally left Young Talent Time behind and released the album Don't Ask with the single Chains. She now speaks and sings in English, Italian and French, and she also sings in Spanish. Tina Arena is one of Australia's highest selling female artists ever, and she sold more than 10 million records worldwide. There was never a sense, though, that there was tall poppy with you. Like, no one was rooting for you to fail, and no one was rooting for you to be anything, well, I don't feel, to be anything other than successful. I'm not talking about people in your life, but I'm talking about a public perception. Like, there was always tremendous affection, but was it a bit of an infantilizing affection? Did Australia want you to stay as cute little Tina Arena?
I think they do with anybody in that kind of scenario. That scenario's peculiar.
Yeah.
It's unusual. What child
Being a child star
develops and goes through a pretty normal life?
Because it's uncomfortable when they become a woman.
Of course.
It's uncomfortable for you. I remember little Nikki Webster who opened the Olympics and then suddenly she was doing some sexy dance, or Miley Cyrus. I wanted to ask you how you felt about and how you feel when you watch people like Miley Cyrus transition, and it's so obvious to me what they're doing, which is going, I'm not a kid anymore, I'm a woman, but it's so public.
It's tough. Look, it's a brutal job being in the public eye. It really is. It's not. There are a lot of really wonderful things, but I think that you need to understand that it is a job and it has its ups and its downs. So, how do I feel? They're just normal processes that they have to go through, you know. And watching her twerking as a young girl, I just thought, oh God, Molly, are you going to wake up one day and just go, what the fuck was I thinking? And that's fine. Because it's all part of growing up, and that's the beautiful thing. You're going to do some things that you're going to be able to relate to.
Yeah.
And some things further down the track where you're going to go, what was I thinking?
Do you watch Touch
but
My
it's
Body?
All part,
Was it called Touch My Body, the song that you did?
I Need Your Body.
I Need Your Body.
I need your body. I got to have your body.
Do you watch, how do you feel when you watch that video back?
I just see a young girl who was so gorgeously lost. It was gorgeous. Just in the middle of just trying to find herself. There was nothing mean. There was nothing untoward. And I don't come from a generation of calculation.
Yeah.
Today we live in a world where everything is calculated to an inch of its life, and that's what truly bores me about today. I don't find anything interesting. I don't really find social media interesting. Whilst I understand that it's a platform that exists, it enables us to get what it is that we do out there. I'm grateful for that. I understand that it's an ingenious technology. However, I'm struggling with the relationship that humanity is having with it, because what has happened is that humanity has crossed the line and has allowed technology to lead its lives. It's a problem. And until humanity understands that there is a priority and that is not the priority in life, and that it is an exceptional tool that needs to be prioritized, that's all. You control your life. That doesn't control me, and I won't let it control me. I still don't know how to use things. I still don't buy things on the internet. My son goes to me, Mum, you know, what are you doing? Like, how come you don't know how to do that? And I go, well, darling, that's where you can possibly help me. Because, well, you should be able to do that yourself, Mum.
That's a pretty standard conversation between every
and I'd
mother
be like,
and their
you know
tween.
what? I'm kind of happy not knowing how to do it. Do you like the meal that's on your plate at night? Yeah, Mum, I do like it. That's what's important to me, kiddo.
That didn't come from a phone.
And that didn't come from a phone, hon. That came from me thinking about it, going to the supermarket or going to the market, preparing the ingredients, taking the time and putting that love in that dish, that when you put that in your mouth, you go, wow, thank God I love my mum's food.
Oh, see, I wish I could cook.
But you can
But
cook.
how will my kids be connected to me if I can't give them that?
They'll always be connected
We
to
watch
you,
Grey's
honey.
Anatomy together.
That's good.
Do you think that's enough?
Of course that's enough. It depends on the relationship you have. Look, I have a very primal relationship with food. Yeah, I'm Italian.
You're Italian. I imagine you're a killer cook.
Like I'm, as my son says, and I say to him, an inappropriate term. He goes, Mum, you're just a wog. I was going, yeah, okay. That's a term that you do not use. It's okay. And I say to him, and I've explained to him what that means. So he does understand. He goes, Mum, you're just old-fashioned. I go, yeah, and I'm happy with that, son.
How French is he and how Australian is he? And where do you guys live now?
Well, we live in Melbourne, and we're spending much more time in Melbourne now because he's in grade 6 and will be in year 7 next year. So he's getting ready to go to high school.
So what prompted the decision to move home? Because it's not home for your partner, Vincent.
No, it's not.
He's French, and your son was born in Paris, wasn't he?
Yeah, Gabriel's, French.
He's French.
Yeah, he was born at the American hospital in Neuilly.
So what brought you home?
Well, the understanding that, I've lived away for 20 years and my partner is a beautiful man who philosophically has given me many more layers than I had ever dreamt of having. And that he understands that his partner is an Australian, it's Italo-Australian that comes from a beautiful country, and that he understands that both those cultures play a very important role in educating our boy, where he needs to understand where his mum comes from. And he needs to understand his grandparents and his aunties and his uncles and the plethora of cousins and first, second, third cousins that he has. And that beautiful sense of family that is become so intrinsically lost in everything. So, when the Italians get together, it's a mess. And I bloody love it that way. Because they're still
It's the best
screaming.
kind of mess.
They're screaming and come and eat. And I don't want to eat. And it's like, you don't eat, I'll give you a backhander. Get to the table now. It's everything that you see, and there's so much love.
Did you have that big messy family in Paris?
No, because it's much more rigid and reserved. There's a lot of English in the French. That's why they kind of loathe one another, yet they'll never move without one another.
So Australians are more similar to Italians than French?
In some way.
Yeah.
In some ways. The Australians have become, for me, I grew up in an Italian household, so they're all mad
You didn't
Sicilians.
speak English until you were 5.
No.
I find that so interesting. So your parents, I'm obsessed with this story. They had a proxy marriage.
Yeah, my mum was the last. Mum and dad were the last.
So that was legal.
Of the legal
Obviously.
proxy marriages. They stopped after Joe and Francis's wedding.
What year was that?
50.
The 50s.
Yeah.
So,
maybe 51.
Your father came out from Italy to find a better life. They'd met before he came out, right?
The families knew one another, thankfully.
But it was an arranged marriage.
Yeah, totally.
And your grandfather walked your mother down the aisle, and your father wasn't at the other end.
No, my dad was in Innisfail in northern Queensland.
Cutting cane.
Cutting cane.
And someone stood in for him, and they were officially married, even though they were in different countries.
Correct.
And then your mum was 21. She then came out to Australia because your grandfather wouldn't let her come out to Australia to be with your dad until
Correct.
they were married.
Correct.
So she got on that boat not knowing what or who was at the other end. Have you talked to her now about how she felt?
She was frightened and excited by the same breath, I guess. She was fortunate enough to know Dad because Dad was really good mates with her brothers. So they all kind of grew up together because they come from the same paese, a little village called Valguarnera, which used to be called Caro Pepe. Caro Pepe means Dear Pepe.
Dear Pepe. Oh,
right?
Dear Pepe, right.
So it's a great little village. I love it to pieces. So they knew one another and they were an incredibly good-looking couple. Like she was hot And I think he was even hotter.
And
he's
did she dream of a love marriage, or she didn't even consider that?
I don't think they even considered that, but they did have a beautiful marriage. They still have a beautiful marriage.
I mean, it's not that different to being set up on a blind date or married at first sight.
Thing, or married at first. What is that all about?
It's a reality show. I know.
Is that what it is?
So even though the term arranged marriage,
are we that desperate to find concepts for TV
we
that
are.
we need to educate people about that? I'm kind of sad about that, with all due respect to the contestants.
It's marriage as entertainment, I guess.
Marriage is not entertainment. Marriage is a serious thing. It's a commitment between two people. And the fact that it's ridiculed in a way, I really struggle with that.
Except for the people who really want it, being the gay community,
but I struggle.
who aren't allowed to have it.
Well, I struggle with the fact that we live in 2017. Look, they're a smart community. I know they'll work it out. They'll work it out. Don't worry about them. It's only a question of time. But I don't like...
Marriage is not for you, though?
My first experience was disgraceful, and it was appallingly treated under Australian law, and I have a real problem with the Australian law with it, because what I went through, if I had to reopen the case
Financially, you mean?
Financially.
Yeah.
I went back to zero after 25 years of work, after being married for 2 years. So, no, I have no respect for the concept, the legal concept of marriage. The concept of marriage is a beautiful thing. I don't have any respect for it, the view
how
of
it can be used.
How it can be used, and how the law makes so much money through people's demises. That, for me, I find disgusting. So I have a problem with it. However, having said that, I've been married to a beautiful man for 17 years behind the church, as we say.
Behind the church. I love that.
Vince always said, yeah, we're married behind the church. And we're really happy with that. We're really, really happy as a couple.
It's often the kids who have I'm sure you're really happy, but it's often the kids who then go, I want you to get married, Mum and Dad. That's what happened to Brad and Angelina.
Yeah.
Look how that turned out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Gabriel would love us to get married. He's like, can I carry the rings? I go, darling, it's more than the rings, I can tell you. No, he's great. We will do it one day. It will be a very private affair. That is a choice that we make, because, I've always drawn a line in the sand. Whilst I'm happy to be honest, I will draw a line in that sand there.
And you've drawn a line very carefully around Gabrielle as well.
Yeah.
And you don't, I noticed in the 60 Minutes interview you did, your beautiful, very sexy partner, Vincent, was on camera, and I don't think I'd ever seen him before.
No.
How did you come to that decision?
I left it totally to him. I said, Vinny, you don't have to do anything. There is no obligation here. I'm really proud of him, actually, because it takes a lot of courage, and I think what people need to understand is this. I think at my age I've understood something really quite profound, and that is that it takes enormous strength to be the silent partner behind somebody like me that has the history that I have. And
it takes a very secure person.
It takes a man that has to know who he is. And I'm been living with the most beautiful man in the last 17 years who's taught me about love, who's taught me about respect, who's taught me about self-worth, who's taught me about the beautiful, simplistic things in life and the basics that are really all that matter to us at the end of the day, is to live those human experiences and to live in the moment. And that everything that we do, we leave a beautiful mark.
Do you speak French to each other?
Yeah, we do.
You speak to each other in French?
Yes, we do.
That's your language?
Yes, we do. French and English.
How do you decide which one to speak?
Whatever comes to mind first.
Really?
Yeah.
And what do you think?
We're so bilingual.
Yeah.
We think in both. I've been thinking in both for a long time now.
How do you... I know that it's not a decision whether you think in either, but how do you... are there certain things you think about in French and certain things you think about in English?
Probably. I mean, it'd be hard to be specific.
Yeah.
But...
And Gabriel?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, Gabriel's relationship with his father is just in French. So they
only speak in French.
They only speak in French. I speak in English to Gabriel. I also speak a bit of Italian, and his grandparents speak Italian to him. So Gabriel's versed in 3.
Has that changed now that you're living in Australia? Any of that?
No, we keep it going.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you got to keep it going. Practice. You got to practice it, because if you don't, that's when you lose it.
And was it a big adjustment for Vincent and Gabriel to come to Australia? Like, you've visited, I imagine, a million times. But
Gabriel knows no different, because Gabriel's been coming here ever since he was a baby.
Okay.
I think it's a big adjustment for Vince, yes. Yes, absolutely.
As the trailing spouse, in some ways.
Yeah, in some ways. Not even. It's a cultural thing. My other half grew up in the south of France. He grew up in Provence. So
what's different to him? What's been jarring?
He has a connection with nature that, we fundamentally don't really have in city life. And he's a bit of an anarchist. He doesn't understand the country being nannied to an inch of its life. He struggles with that. I do as well.
You're properly French.
I am very French.
You're properly French. But isn't it interesting what's important in different cultures? In
Look,
France, after giving birth, women have free vaginal toning classes.
Correct. The kinesiology, where women basically work on restoring that muscle.
Isn't that fascinating as a cultural priority?
Well,
like genuinely fascinating.
Yeah, it is. But we're also cultures that aren't very sexually driven either.
Australia? Do you mean?
I think anywhere in the world.
That's not sexually... Well, that suggests that it's fairly sexually driven.
Well, they are. They work on it. But, there's nothing like
the
that.
French.
Yeah, they work on that. That's a big part of Europe. I mean, Europe has a healthier relationship with sexuality, full stop. That's all.
More open as well.
They're just open. They're just a bit more open about it. But
do you think Australians are more oppressed about sex?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I don't think the relationship with it is, when you're constantly referencing Kim Kardashian, Mia, How
does she play in Europe?
She doesn't.
Do people just not understand her?
No, I don't get it at all. None of us get it. We just go, sorry, did we miss something?
Well, I'm interested that you say that, because when you go to America...
It's not a personal
and increasingly
attack.
Australia, I understand that, but the aesthetic is so different. The aesthetic of what's considered the height of beauty in Australia and America is so different to what you see in Europe.
No, Australia and America have no differences, Mia. Let's put that really properly in perspective, because Australia perpetually references America.
No, that's what I mean. They're different. Australia and America are so different to
Europe
in
completely.
That when you go to Europe, you don't see women with Botoxed faces and fillers in their faces.
You do, but they're just not common as
it's
here.
Not as common.
When I'm seeing
it's not the
20-year-olds and at the end of the day, it's your choice, honey. If you wanna do that seriously, who are we to judge? If that's what you really want to do and it makes you feel great, knock yourself out.
Is it easier to age in France?
Yes.
Than you think it is in Australia?
Yes, it is. Of course.
In what way?
Just a bit freer. We're just a bit freer. European women are just a bit more. They're freer.
Yeah.
We're not interested in keeping up with anybody, really. I'm just interested in keeping up with my own life. And I have people that I like, people that I think are inspiring. That's great. But I like people that will look beyond their aesthetic and that have something to say. That's what I'm interested in. But that's just as an individual what I'm interested in. It's not I'm not saying to everybody you must be like me, because...
No. That's just your personal...
It's my personal point of view. I grew up, my references were Sophia Loren, Gina Lollobrigida, Claudia Cardinale, Charlotte Rampling, who's never Botoxed, and you see every line, and every line I love. Every line I will embrace, because it's got a story to tell. And that's what I love. And I see a little bit more unity between the female race. I don't see so much unity here. I find a bit of a disconnection and a bit of sense of competition that I struggle with. And perhaps it's a big part of the reason why I chose with the Arias to collaborate with the girls, because...
The Veronicas.
And Jess Mauboy, because didn't want to be there on my own. I went, is this really about me? And I went, yes and no. This is about women for me. And what's really important for me is that I know that when I grew up, there's not many Olivia Newton-Johns in the world that are going to come up to you and go, sweetheart, what you do is really beautiful. Don't ever lose sight. She was the only one that said that. I don't remember any other female women really doing that. And today, in the last few years, there's that kind of segregation that's instilled with women, not because I think necessarily it's something that they want to do, but because it's difficult already being a woman in the music business and one of a particular age and experience. I just find I don't deal really well with the segregation. I want to feel supported by another female. I just do. I want to feel that. And I don't always feel that. So that performance for me was not just about me. It was about hopefully women going, we do need to stand together. We don't need to sit there and nitpick one another and go, oh, did you see her and the shoes she's wearing? Frankly, I don't give a Seriously, I don't care what you wear. What I care about is you and what your vision is and how you feel in a situation, and that you feel something in a situation, that you don't feel threatened, and that you go in there with an open heart and an open mind. And that's all I've ever tried to do as a woman, is to educate that at nearly 50, after feeling so ostracised and so isolated as being a young woman in this industry. But remember, I was an ethnic girl where people misconstrued my feistiness and they didn't understand that it was passion, and that all I did was wanted to do what I wanted to do because I had something to say, and I didn't want people to tell me how to say it, because you have no right to do that. Do not step in the way of somebody's freedom or their art. Don't do that. Allow them to be free in that, and that's all I wanted. So I try and encourage them to go, girls, be free. Open.
But what does that mean? Do you think that there's a place for a female artist in the music industry in 2017 without taking their clothes off?
Of course there is. Has Adele taken her clothes off?
Yeah, I'm thinking of
Every
Adele.
second word is
I'm thinking of Adele, but then I think of Madonna. I think of Madonna. I think of other artists who Adele really is an outlier.
Yes.
I don't see a lot of other female artists who can remain successful and relevant without taking their clothes off. I mean, I know I shouldn't say it's sad to watch Madonna, but
in a way it kind of is.
We grew up with her. She's iconic.
She's nothing to prove because she paved the way.
Exactly, but now she's trying to look like she's 22.
Well, maybe that's the relationship that she has with herself, and it's maybe something that she needs to address, and no doubt. Madonna's a very smart woman.
She is.
And a woman who's philosophically pretty in tune. Don't ever be deceived by what you see and the wealth that you may think that she has, because her wealth is in her mind.
But she doesn't show that. Is the only way to stay current for her taking her clothes off?
Maybe because no one's been courageous.
Like such a prude, but you know what I mean, right?
No, there's nothing prudish about it. It's about self-respect. When she did her things, they were ahead of her time, and they were referential, and they will always remain referential. And, I think we have a lot to celebrate for her, and I think that she just needs a big hug, and she needs somebody to just say, mate,
you're better than that.
Shut the hell up, just get on with it.
Because I guess I'm looking for role models. I don't know about you, but I'm looking for role models of women who are aging gracefully. Sounds so
pathetically
cliched and also condescending, and I don't mean that. And
I understand.
I'm not casting judgment on whether someone wants to take their clothes off or not, but I want there to be different options. If you want to take your clothes off, fine. If you want to keep them on, fine. If you want to have hairy armpits, fine. If you want to have grey hair, fine. But there don't seem to be that diversity of options. It seems to be, there's being skinny and taking your clothes off, and that's it. Or you can be Adele, and she's the only other one, almost. So I guess my question is, how do you see yourself fitting into that spectrum of how you want to portray yourself and what the current music industry demands of women?
First of all, it is a very, very complicated scenario. And second of all, there are two boxes, two schools of thought there, two different boxes. I don't like boxes. I'm a Scorpio. You never put a Scorpio in a corner because the tail goes up and it'll go you, right? Now, I'll never go you unless you go me first, and then look out, right? But I only have one thing to say. Deconstruct and declutter and just be who you are, and don't adhere to rules that you think
So
are
you feel that
rules
you've got that power in the industry now
I
to make your
do.
own rules?
Yeah, of
That
course
must
I
feel
do.
bloody good.
It's 40 years, Mia.
You've
Christ,
earned it.
I have 40 years of being in this industry, and it's only recently that it's dawned on me, where I had a very brutal awakening where I kind of sobbed. It was like being in a therapy session. I was like, crikey, where have I been all these years? And that's why this tour is important for me, because it's paying respect to the beginnings of a beautiful story that I've been able to tell the way that I've wanted to tell. And it's a very unusual situation. And that unusualness is something that's worth celebrating.
How do you feel when you sing those songs that are just so iconic, like Chains and Sorrento Moon? As an artist, I've always wanted to ask this. As an artist with these incredibly famous songs, is it like, okay, or do you just love it?
I've had my battles with them, I think it would be correct of me to say that I've always loved them. There have been moments that I've loved them. There have been moments where I've gone, I don't want to sing this anymore.
Yeah, that's not who I am anymore.
That's not who I am. I'm a different woman, I was 25 years old when that record came out. I'm 50 in a minute. And I've got so many other things to say now, but radio won't play it.
Why is that?
Because it's a country that hasn't really quite understood that it's a country that doesn't pay respect to its patrimoine. And that's where I struggle with Australia. I always have. They've always been it's always better out somewhere else.
You have to go and be successful overseas.
Somewhere
like
else.
Kylie, like Megan Gale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also my story where I
And
became
you.
so successful in France, and then everyone sort of said, oh, what do you mean? It's like,
She's ours. Hang on.
she's ours, and the French public is not an easy public to seduce at all. And I went in there with absolutely no expectations. That's maybe why it worked, because I didn't manipulate it to an inch of its life. But what I see as an Australian is that we have a lot of work to do when it comes to respecting who we are and where we come from and celebrating our own. That relationship and that incapacity, not incapacity, because there are Australians that are very respectful of their own. But if you were to put a Tenure Arena ticket and an Ed Sheeran ticket, they will gravitate to Ed Sheeran before they gravitate to Tenure Arena. That's because, taking nothing away from Ed, who's a great talent and writes really great songs, but because he's so present in everybody's conscious all the time.
Because he gets lots of radio play.
Because he gets all the radio play.
And is it that no one in there over sort of the age of 30 can get any radio play?
Aside from Smooth, who have been great.
Oh, Smooth are the best.
Yeah, they're a really wonderful station who think outside the box and are very clear, very categorically
And are having massive
realised,
success.
as a result of it, have categorically realised, okay, our format is to do that and to play things that appease people. And we have other radio formats in this country that do the same thing. So there's a real congestion. And with all due respect to them, we live in a country where we've got college radio like America, where you can diversify staff. It's small here. But radio pays $300 million in this country for a radio license. Another fee that I struggle to get my head around. Why would somebody pay $300 million for air? How do you quantify that? And then you have to
That's a
hear all
philosophical
those.
question.
It is a philosophical question, but one that people don't ask. It's like, well, this is what we do, and just put up with it. Well, no, actually, I don't want to put up with it. I actually want to understand why you do that. And why are you playing a Justin Bieber song that's half in English and half in Spanish? Why don't you play one of my French records? I'd love to know what the answer to that is. With all due respect to Justin, sweetheart. Again, not a personal attack, just a question that people aren't perhaps prepared to ask. Why don't you play one of my French records?
Oh, no, that would be too tricky, wouldn't it?
Oh, but no, but you're Tina Arena, you're not as cool as Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
But hang on a sec. I'm Australian. He's not. We don't care. Okay. So that's fine. And you just continue to do what it is that you do, and you're challenged, and that's okay. And I'm totally comfortable with it, and I'm not pissing on anybody. I took my son to see Justin. My son loved the show.
How old is Gabrielle now?
Nearly 12. We went to see Adele. Really loved the show.
Beautiful shows.
Lovely show. Whatever. It is not a personal attack. And you know what? I'm not bitter. I'm not grumpy. I'm not twisted. I just tell it as it is because I have the capacity to be able to zoom out and see it for what it is. That's all.
This philosophical approach you have to things,
I
How
can't be
did
the
you-
only dickhead. Please, I cannot
no,
be.
you are.
No. Far out. Don't tell me that.
You have an incredibly... You're unlike anyone else in terms of...
Take that as a compliment.
You should. You don't dial anything in, Tina Arena. You dial in nothing. You're having another hot flush?
No. Just contemplating should I blow my nose.
You could. This philosophical approach and this kind of earth goddess, wisdom mother thing that you've got going on, which you really do. You're very grounded in your energy. How did you apply that to turning 46 when you went through menopause and you realised this is it, this phase of my life, the childbearing years, are over?
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Tough. That even more than the 3 miscarriages, which I kind of just sort of put on the burner and went, I know that one day I'll deal with that and it'll hit me really hard.
You had those after you had Gabrielle?
Yeah. Yes, I did. I lost 3 after Gab, and no different to anyone else. How many women lose children all the time? Every second there is a child lost.
It's true, but they were your children. Like, just because I was talking to a friend yesterday who's just had a miscarriage, and I've had 2 really. And I said, does it make you feel better or worse to know that it's really common? And she said, it makes me feel worse because I feel like if it's so common, why am I so upset? And that broke my heart a little bit. And I said, no, everyone's upset. Everyone is that upset, but it just happens behind closed doors. It's just not something that's often shared.
I've got one thing to say that perhaps we don't really think about in this country, and with our sight, with our conditioning and the way that we see death and the loss of a child. In France, the French say, la nature est bien faite. Nature is well made. Nature will keep what is meant to be kept, and nature will eliminate what they feel needs to be eliminated. I think we need to have a little bit more of a philosophical approach to it and understand that a little bit more.
I knew you'd have an angle on it. I knew you'd have an angle, a philosophical angle.
What am I going to do?
Well, I agree, because I'm
Mia,
always...
what am I going to do? Like,
Everyone makes peace of it in their way.
Exactly. And to talk about it, and also, someone...
Is that how you found your peace with it?
That's how I found my peace with it. And I went... And I almost felt embarrassed to talk about it, and selfish in a way, like, you, Tina, and you think you are talking about the loss of a child, you spoiled whatever. You know what? I'm a woman.
Why
and I
don't
was
you think
working
that?
because people can think that.
Like, oh, you think you're the first one who's ever had a miscarriage?
Because she's talking about it.
Oh, God.
I would like to be able to think that that's not the
not the
case.
case.
And it's not the
It's not the
case,
case.
Mia, and I know it's not the case. And the fact that we do talk about it,
There's a lot of shame caught up with it, though, isn't there? Shame and guilt and...
we should never be shameful or guilty for it. It is a part of nature. And like I
Yeah.
said, nature will keep and eliminate what's not supposed to be there, because maybe there is something wrong. So what are you going to do? You just need to do. And I go, universe, thanks for the one that I have. It's a work of art. It's hard work, but I'm grateful for that. So I just feel comfortable in talking about those things because I know how uncomfortable people are.
How did
about
you
it.
make peace when it became clear that there would be no more children? Because you always have hope, right? I don't know what sort of time period those 3 miscarriages are, but I assume up till the end, you were still, could be a miracle, could happen.
Yeah. God, I was shagging my head off. So, I mean, I was hoping, they just never stuck. That was it. How did I cope with it? When the menopause kicked in, I realised that the reproductive machine had broken down. And I went, okay, that's what I need to deal with. And I needed to be grateful. And I went, and I thought about it. I thought, God, we got first world problems, man. And that's when I started to feel ashamed. I went, I don't want to feel like this. What about the women that are abused and things are done to their genitalia, and the Muslim women that are treated like slaves? Not only them, there are lots of different religions and females and males that suffer too. So I needed to get out of that. I went, I don't want to be egotistical about this. I want to be grateful the fact that this is okay and I can deal with it. I can deal with it. I can talk to someone about it. I can talk to my family. I can cry to my friends. And I'm comfortable talking about it as somebody that's in the media, because we should all talk about it. Girls talk about it. It's good.
We must.
Let's stick together. And there was an interesting article posted on my Facebook a few weeks ago, which I really invite every woman to look at. And it talks about women in the village and in the villages and how they deal and dealt with things. And the fact that they were united with their children, everybody helping raise their children, and that sense of community that we don't have anymore. We don't let our children go out. We don't let them stay. We don't let them do here. We don't let them do that, because we have an instrument that's perverse.
What do you mean
beautiful.
we have an instrument that's perverse?
Well, the internet. The internet, social media.
Are you a helicopter mother? A tiger mother? What kind of mother are you?
I'm pretty hard because I have to.
Yeah, you'd be like, are you the bad cop and Vince is the good cop?
Yeah, well, he gives me a lot of shit because he's very smart and he'll always try and get around it, and he's incredible debater, and that's the very
This
French
is Gabriel,
side. Gab is
Yeah.
very French in the art of debate. And I say, look out, kids, in a few years' time, because he's extraordinary. And he's got a really interesting perspective on all of it, But there are people that troll those things. So I don't want photos of my boy in there. And yeah, about 3 months ago, there was a big discussion a Saturday morning in our house, and it got pretty heated, and his father put him through the ringer, and I had to put him through the ringer, and it made me sick. I wanted to vomit in the afternoon because I knew that it was a process that we had to go through.
Tough love.
It's tough love. And you know what? Suck it up, because that's the way it's going to be. And if you think that you're going to be able and that you're the prince, you ain't going to be the prince. You've got the rest of your life to learn, and you're respectful, and that instrument needs to be put in order.
And how did that resolve itself?
Well, he struggled with it. He said it's not fair. And I said, well, I'm really sorry. There are a lot of things that we do that you will not agree with and that you won't think is fair. But my responsibility as a parent is to teach you that, because if I didn't teach you that, I wouldn't be a responsible parent.
Someone once said to me, if you're not pissing your kids off at least once a day, you're not doing it right.
Mate, I'm pissing mine off all the time. and I'm always arguing with him, and I don't care. That's a healthy debate. It's healthy debate. But I'm not going to sit and pussyfoot around a 12-year-old that's going to tell me how it's going to be done. I will tell him how it's going to be done because he's got the rest of his life to do what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. My responsibility is to program him the best that I possibly can, to give him a great sense of discipline, compassion, empathy for others, a sense of giving, a sense of all of that, which he has.
Respect for women.
And respect for everybody. You know, in my house there's Jewish mates, there's Muslim mates, there's anarchists. The door is always open. There's always food on the table. I don't care
all of them.
where you come from. You don't eat
Halal,
pork.
kosher.
I don't care.
Come and sit down.
I'll go to the halal butcher. I've done it before. I'll do it again. Whatever. There is love and there is respect and there is communication. That's my household.
What's the best thing about being a woman in your 40s? What would you say to the younger women coming down the pipeline who are fearful of growing older because everything in our culture says that we're discarded in our 40s and beyond?
You don't buy into popular culture. Popular culture has always been there.
I can't not buy into popular culture.
Well, of course you can't. That's your gig, doll.
Yeah, I know. But what surprised you about being in your 40s?
How much fun it was.
Yeah.
And how...
Oh, you're talking about it in the past tense already.
Well, you know, I'm 50 November 1. You know,
right.
And it's
You're still in your 40s.
I'm 49.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it. I just started not really caring about what other people think.
You give less shits, don't you?
Yeah, you just go, you know what, it is what it is. And in the world that we live in where everybody is a voice and everybody feels that they're an expert to talk about something in some way, shape or form, well, whatever. You know, I just thought it's not about buying into that. It's about being happy with who I am. The mistakes, if you want to call them mistakes, and the good choices and the choices that lie ahead. Be comfortable, be in the moment. Do not follow suit. Be truthful to yourself. If you're not happy, be open about it. Be expressive about it. If something doesn't make you that, talk about it, because there's something very unhealthy by not acknowledging those things. So we have a society that's very unhealthy because they're not encouraged to speak their minds. Perhaps that's a part of my job, to be able to say it's okay to speak your mind. And I'm happy with that. And you know what? I'm not perfect. And if somebody's got something to say to me, I will very gladly hear it because I think that that's the right thing to do.
Do you feel that as a woman, as you get older, you become more visible or invisible?
Well, you can become more invisible, of course. But I think I think honesty and transparency always has a presence. And I feel that moving forwards in today's day and age, I think that they're the only things that you can have moving forward in a world where we have everything and we have nothing. Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting. And honest, you are certainly honest and transparent, Tina Arena. Thank you so much. Love you. Love you. Just love everything about you.
Thanks, Mia. It's very kind. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to No Filter. I recorded that conversation with Tina on about day 2 or 3 of 2 of the most difficult weeks of my professional and personal career, really, and life. And it was just the antidote I needed to take my mind off everything, because she just is unlike anyone I've ever met. She's just so interesting. She's so interesting. Like, she can come across a little bit earnest at times, but she's also just so funny, and she just thinks about life in a really, really interesting way. She has a memoir that's out. It's called Now I Can Dance. And there's also a greatest hits album that she's got out. You can buy her memoir at iBooks at apple.co/mamamia. And this is also where you can subscribe to all our other shows in one place because there are lots of them. You can also buy my book, Work-Strife Balance, at iBooks. And you can find Tina's greatest hits album on iTunes now. And guess what? If you want to see Tina in concert, good news. She's touring the country with her Innocence to Understanding tour. From September, she'll be touring, and go to tinaarena.com/tours to find out more. If you want to suggest a guest or ask me a question or leave a comment about this interview or any other, call the pod phone on 02 8999 9386, or you can flick me an email at podcast@mamamia.com.au. The pod phone's been running hot lately with comments. We do a correspondence episode every few weeks with some of the best calls that we get. It's just become this great thing. I love it. People ring up and not everyone's got time to email. Some people they're in the car usually and they've listened to it and they just like to call the pod phone and leave a comment. Today's show was produced by Eliza Ratliff for the Mamma Mia Women's Network. The executive producer of podcasts is Monique Bowley, and the head of entertainment is Holly Wainwright. I'm Mia Friedman. For all of those people, and on behalf of everyone here at Mamma Mia, thanks for listening. I'll see you on the internet. Lots of love. Bye.